Right, well, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for coming, and thank you, Matthew, for organising this. I quite enjoy students helping other students when and where they can. So today I'm just talking about the clerkship process and graduate programs. It's quite a lengthy process, especially once you get into all the technical bits of it, and lots of people. There'll be thousands of people applying for some clerkship positions. So what I would like to do is I'll run through the slides. If you have any questions, type them up or ask them as we go. That way they're still fresh in your mind and the topic's still fresh in my mind as we go along. So the first thing I want to talk about is what are clerkships? So in essence, clerkships are 4-week paid work experience or internships. They're essentially quite an extended job interview, and they will tell you in the sessions that they are quite the job interview. All right, just saying we get some chaps. Oh, it's just hellos. So in your 4 weeks there, the law firm will assess you, but also at the same time, you can assess the law firm. And that way you get to know that particular firm's culture, ethos, what it's like to work in. Now, what's something that a lot of people miss is that you need to apply in your penultimate year. So you need to apply in your second last year for clerkships. So if you're in your final year, usually you'll find it to be quite a barrier in order to get into or secure a clerkship position. There is a significant number of firms who just simply don't accept people in their final year. So when you do apply, make sure you're in your second last year, or if you're in your first year, second year, or you're doing a 5-year degree program, make sure you apply in the relevant second last year. It doesn't mean that you can't get clerkships, because I did a clerkship in my last year. It just will be a significant barrier for quite a number of firms. And in my final year, a lot of firms wrote back and just standard email, but they said, you're in your final year, so we will not be progressing. Now, for the 4 weeks, and it is paid, you are paid under the law award. If you're working in any private practice, you come under the law award. So most firms, it'll be just over $1,000 a week, not factoring tax. But it's nice to know that you can actually do that and you're actually getting paid with it. It used to be some law firms, they wouldn't pay you for it. They're either completed in Queensland, it's November to December, it'll be a 4-week slot there. January to February, another 4-week slot there. And June to July, a 4-week slot there. Now, this June to July slot, not every law firm does it. Law firms that do all 3 slots, that's just their options. Some will only do 1, some will do 2, some will do all 3. And depending on how many slots that they do or how many sessions that they do, will depend on how many people they'll accept. So one of the biggest advantages getting a clerkship has for you is you get to actually gain insight into the particular firm before you actually commit to working there in a graduate role, before you start working there full time. You also get to see what it's like to work at in a law firm, particularly most clerkships are offered in medium to large law firms to international sized law firms. And the practices in them are quite different in scale and size to your smaller firms or your more boutique firms. So you get to find the cultural difference as well as what the workplace is like, along with their any particular ethos. Plus, you actually get to do some hands-on actual legal work. The other main reason to consider doing clerkships is priority graduate job offers. So a graduate position is when you finish your law degree, whether you've done your 3 years with the LLB, you did a 4 years with honours, your Juris Doctorate, and you've done it full-time, part-time. Once you've finished that degree, you're not actually a lawyer until you have done your graduate diploma in legal practice, which doing that at full-time takes about 6 months. And then you have to get admitted after that. So you're not actually a lawyer once you finish your law degree. And the usual in-between job that is quite good if you can get is a law graduate job, because a law graduate job is in essence a trainee lawyer, where roles such as a law clerk or a paralegal or a law secretary, while they're all very good experiences in law, they don't do the same amount of work that a law graduate does. It's different work orientation. So what they'll do is law firms will offer graduate positions to their clerks first. So anyone who's done a clerkship with them, they will first offer their graduate position to them. And getting a clerkship doesn't necessarily mean you will get the graduate position, because generally, say there might be 8 clerkships spots are offered, 4 in the November to December slot, 4 in the January to February slot, but there might only be 4 graduate positions all up that the firm will be offering. So while you're there, you're also, as I said, it's an extended job interview. But they will pick the 4 people that they would like, or more. They cannot offer everyone, and they'll offer it to you before they open the market out, before anyone else can do it. Now, in Queensland, you can accept up to 3 clerkships. And generally, you will find that people who get offered 1 clerkship will be offered others elsewhere as well. It's rather an interesting fact I noticed when I did it. So there are some very key dates. And also going back to here, that it is different in other jurisdictions, because I know in New South Wales, it's not 4 weeks, it's 8 weeks. It's done over November to December, and then January to February with a little break in the middle. So if you're in jurisdiction outside of Queensland, please make sure you know the actual length. So you don't need to take 4 weeks off of your current work or anything else like that. It might actually be 8 weeks. So the key dates for Queensland, the applications open on the 5th of July. The Legal Career Expo in Brisbane is on the 26th of July, and then applications close on the 13th of August. Now, please prepare your applications as early as possible. It will take a significant period of time to write your cover letter, which in essence, it'll be your cover letter that will make it or break it. And yes, Matthew, you're right. The law societies of each jurisdiction publish when it is. But something just to also keep in mind is that these are the key dates for firms that subscribe to the law society's guidelines. There are some firms that like to be different. I know Shine Lawyers, for example, doesn't subscribe to these dates. They do their applications in December and January. But by and large, this is the guideline that most firms go by. So it'll open on the 5th of July, but you can start preparing your cover letters now. The more personalized the cover letter, the more the law firm sees that you've actually put thought into your cover letter in reference to their firm, the more likely chance you'll go through at least to an interview stage. If the law firm can swap out their name and put a name of their competitor in and see that there is little to no difference in meaning, then that will show to them that you haven't tailored it enough. So when you do your letters, make sure that it's unique and tailorable. And that is what will take you the most amount of time. You will be writing, you'll have your resume or your curriculum vitae all done up, and you'll use that everywhere. You'll have your academic transcript that you'll use everywhere, but it's your cover letter that really sets you apart in terms of personalization of the firm actually getting to know you. Because many firms already know that you're reasonably good. You're in a law degree, you've made it to your second last year. Obviously, you can do the job to an extent. So what they want to know is, who are you as a person, as well as do you actually have the academics to back it up? And a really useful tool to get to know the law firms and know which ones are offering the clerkships and what they're like and what they do is the Legal Career Expo. So that's held in Brisbane. It was cancelled last year, unfortunately, but this year it'll be on the 26th of July. So you can go there and all the law firms will be there. And it's a good chance for you to walk around, interact with them, because most law firms, if they're not personal injury and if they're not class action, if they're not people that advertise on TV, you just won't know them from the day-to-day running of things. Not many people who are just studying law and getting by, unless they work in the legal industry, will know about firms such as Norton Rose Fulbright or Clayton Utz, or DLA Piper, which in the legal world, in terms of law firms, they're the big ones. But most people, the average person on the street, won't have heard of them. They'll maybe have heard of Shine or Morris Blackburn because they advertise, but they won't have heard of these major corporate ones or the major commercial ones, which is why going to the Legal Career Expo, if you can attend, and if you can't attend, they do produce brochures. It gives you a good insight into what firms are there and what do they do, because every firm does something that's slightly different. For example, some firms specialize in intellectual property. And if you don't want to be an intellectual property lawyer, you might not apply to that firm, especially when there are some firms where that's all they want to do. That's one of their main key areas. Now, applications close on the 13th of August, but that doesn't mean that the application process is over. There is actually many steps after the applications have closed. So after the long and arduous month of preparing your cover letters, and for some of them, they'll ask you some extra questions, such as what's the most interesting thing in law for you at the moment? What sets you apart? What makes you different? How are you? A whole bunch of specialized questions they might ask you. Usually after applications have closed and they like your cover letter and resume so far, you'll then be invited to do, some of them do a psychometric assessment, which when they give it to you, they'll give you 2 or 3 days notice to get it completed. It's a very, very short timeline if they do psychometric assessments, and not all of them do it. Some of the ones I've applied for, they've done it, others haven't, and then each of the assessments are different. And in these assessments, they'll range from anywhere from doing little app-based games. They'll test your reading comprehension, your writing comprehension, your arithmetic, because there is a fair bit of maths in law, unfortunately, that they don't really tell you in uni, but very, very common, especially when everything involves tax and tax considerations. But you'll have the psychometric tests, and if they don't have the psychometric tests, they'll usually have something practical thrown into the interview stage. So after the psychometric assessments and the applications have closed and they're happy with all of that, the next stage that they'll go through is the interview. And again, this is usually they'll give you 24 hours to 48 hours notice. Most of the ones I did, one of them was 24 hours notice, two of the others were 7 days. It can be very, very short, or they can give you a bit of length of time. But my short one was more due to COVID, where they decided they won't do in-person applications. Now, the interview process, that can range from anything from 2 lawyers sitting in a room asking you questions. It could be a partner of the firm and someone from HR. It could be 4 partners want to meet and talk to you. It could be a partner, a senior associate, a graduate, and someone from HR. The amount varies, and it is a bit intimidating when there's you and 4 or 5 other people, especially when you know how senior they are, and quite good in the fields that they work it in. And then they might throw an extra alarm at you, and this is something to watch out for, is there might be a practical assessment. Apart from that, who you are, what sets you apart, how have you done with stress that you normally expect in interviews, some interviews will give you for example, for my one at DLA, it was after a 15-minute getting to know me session, it was, here's 26 pages of a business problem. We'll see you in an hour. You'll have a 20-minute presentation. And so you have an hour, and every single other person who did it, we all had an hour to read it through and do individual presentations for it. It was one-on-one against a partner. And it wasn't law related. They were wanting to see what were your practical, applicable skills that you would know outside of law. And in my case, it was the running of a bicycle business and could it be saved or not. So if you've done a business degree, might help. If you've done, it's not to trip you up, these things. They're to see how do you think through logically for non-law related problems. Then, after all of that, after all the stress and worrying, offers are made on the 7th of October. Usually, you will find that they will make these offers between 8 a.m. to 8:30 in the morning. And it's because because it's standardized, every other law firm is making an offer around that time and they want to be first in best dressed. And again, with short time periods, the 8th of October, so the very next day, before 5 o'clock, you have to accept it or reject it. So it doesn't give you a lot of time to think. So before they even make the offer, you have to know in and of yourself, are you actually going to accept it? So key dates to think about, watch out for. And I will add with the interviews, most firms interview about 50 people as the standardized amount. So if you do get into an interview, knowing that there are quite literally thousands of people applying for those spots, don't be disheartened if you don't get it. You were in the top 50 out of over 1,000. Now, the second, following on from key dates, if you have done the clerkship, yes, yeah, or at 5 the same day. So again, with key dates, double check your jurisdiction. Now, when it comes to graduate offers, you'll see that priority offers, if you got a clerkship this year and you're in your penultimate year, you do one over the November to December period. You'll then have to wait until August. So not halfway through semester 2 or around the start of semester 2, they will make you an offer. And in Queensland, you have to accept that graduate offer the next business day. And it might, again, check with your relevant jurisdiction because it might be the same day. It's all very much a fast turnaround. And you'll usually find that, again, it's between 8 to 8:30 that they'll give you the call. So they'll give you the offer before they will open the market out to everyone else. After you've accepted or rejected and they've discovered that they don't actually have enough, or they've had either the rejections or they have more vacancies than expected, then they'll open the market, open the graduate roles to the market at large. And then there'll be same month, usually a week later, they'll close it and they'll make their offers. And in that time, when it's open to the people at large, you'll usually get a call 24 hours to 48 hours saying, come in, have an interview in 24 to 48 hours. So it's all very much a short turnaround time. Now, there are, broadly speaking, 3 types of clerkships. There's private clerkships, public clerkships, and virtual internships. So the private clerkships are the ones where you get paid with law firms, and they're generally commercial based. Most criminal law firms and boutique firms don't offer clerkships. It's not within their design. So you'll usually find that the private ones, it'll always, generally speaking, be commercially based. Now, there are public ones, and they don't follow the same full clerkship guide as the QLS states, generally because by public, they're a branch of the government. It could be the DPP or something else like that, or even internships with the UN. Unfortunately, the ones that are human rights based and not commercially based just either don't have the funding or unable to pay. So you'll find that most of them are usually unpaid. And the third class are virtual internships. And that virtual internships are about 10 hours each and they're unpaid. And as the name suggests, it's all online and all virtual, which for many USQ students is the norm. So you won't be too out of home now. Now, there are some alternatives, and not just alternatives, but they're also a help to your CV when you go to apply for clerkship positions. But if you can't get a clerkship position and you're wanting to still get into a graduate role with a firm, a lot of firms take priority to people that have done have done work experience, and the larger firms generally don't offer self-organized work experience. You can try and ask, but usually those are for the boutique firms or with barristers, where if they can, they do like helping out people just starting out in the law. The second is virtual internships, which I just mentioned before. Virtual internships, you get automatic acceptance. Every single person can get accepted into a virtual internship. Some of the rules around it is you have to, if you want to put it on your LinkedIn that you've done the internship with that firm, the virtual one, that you actually have had to have spent the hours on it and actually given it your best foot forward. So you can't just say, I've done it by clicking through the things and submitting blank paper. They will follow up on it, and it's not the best thing to say. Agree to do something to a major law firm, put it on LinkedIn that you've worked there and have not actually done it. Some other alternatives, being a law clerk, a paralegal, a legal secretary, or being an assistant in a law firm. Now, with these four, while they're good, they don't guarantee roles, law graduate roles, which is generally the gold star that you want once you finish your law degree, is the graduate position. As these four positions, while many people take them once they've finished their law degree, it's the law graduate role where you're more likely to get the solicitor position once you're admitted. It depends on the law firm, but many law firms iterate that if you have one of those four spots, it doesn't necessarily mean you will get the solicitor position. And this is just following up from the virtual internship point, which I strongly recommend, if you have the time to do, to actually complete them. They're very, very similar to what you'll need to do during PLT. So Forage, Performance, I did it when they were inside Sherpa, but Forage is the largest provider of virtual internships. You can do as many as you want. So you don't just have to do one or two. I know people have done all of them. I did 3 myself and I found them quite enjoyable. They take 10 hours roughly, so about you can get them over and done within a weekend. The providers do actually review your work, and that can be quite a good thing, as you can get emails from the providers saying you are the top performer in Queensland for White and Case virtual internship or Ashurst virtual internship. Do you want us to write you a letter of recommendation or tap you on, just tell them that you've done the clerkship or virtual internship and you did it really well? So you can actually get an extra foot in the door and an extra help with them if you have done really well. Plus, the law firm already has access to the work you've done, so they can assess something more outside of the CV and the interviews that you've had. Now, graduate placements, if you do get one, they're generally 12 to 18-month positions with a law firm. You usually complete your graduate diploma in legal practice while doing graduate placement. Now, most of the major law firms actually pay for the GDLP, which is quite good because it's about $12,000 to do. Now, in return, many of them do want you to stay with them, at least for the full graduate placement. It varies from firm to firm. Some firms have agreements, some don't. Most of the ones I've looked at, it's stay with us for 2 years. But you're being compensated financially rather well, plus you still get GDLP. You get your PLT paid for. And usually you're placed in 3 6-month rotations. So you're in the litigation team for 6 months, you're in the finance and projects team for 6 months, and you could be in the real estate or the commercial team for 6 months. And that way you get a feel of each area of the law, or a broad approach to the law before you settle down in which one you wish to be in. And an alternative structure that I know some firms do is 2 9-month placements, as they feel you get a better understanding with 9 months as opposed to 3 6 months. And during this time, you get admitted. If you start as a law graduate, they generally start in February. By the towards the end of the year, in November to December, the law firm gets you admitted or puts forward your admission. So that's the clerkship process and the graduate positions in quite a broad nutshell. I was wondering, quite the best part is, are there any questions? And please fire them all away. Yes, Tracy.
Timothy, I have a question. Do you think that your engagement in the online activities you've participated in have helped you further your career so far?
So the online engagement, getting into the clerkship?
Yes.
It shows a certain amount of self-motivation and self-intuition. I think it also is a good sign of you get to know what that firm's like. The 3 firms where I did the virtual internship, I didn't actually get a clerkship for or anything else like that. But it does actually show. I did have one person mention to me that, I see you've worked at these 3 places, and we liked looking at that. And then I pointed out that it was a virtual internship, but they said even the same, they do like that. So it's quite nice to put on your resume that you've worked at you've done internships at these major law firms. And then especially if you get the people who provide them saying, we'll put a letter of recommendation in.
I have another question if I'm not jumping up. I can wait to see if anybody else has one.
Yep, I've got one other one from
Sure, go with
Matthew.
the other person first.
Best way to make a list of law firms to apply to. So that to do that, there's a couple of ways you can do it. I did the broad net approach. I applied to all of them, and to see, I liked commercial. They're all commercial, so I was happy to do any and all of them. However, if there's an area that you particularly are interested in, for example, if you're interested in international law or international litigation, then have a look at the law firm's websites, or if you get to go to the expo, speak to that firm and say, do you practice in this area? And then the second thing to watch out is they might practice in that area. However, it might be their offices. If you're in Perth, it might be their Melbourne office that deals with it, or it might be their Sydney office that deals with it. So while the firm in Australia as a whole practices in that area, it might not be your local firm or local office that deals with it. So that's just something to watch out for. You can have a search of the firm and then go through the partners who are in the city that you wish to apply for. And then that will give you an idea of what the actual practice areas are in that region for that firm. So it always comes down to, what is it that you want to do? And then you go to those firms first. But also don't discount other firms just because they don't look as bold as the other firms or as impressive looking on their website, as some of their lesser appealing looking firms actually have some of the most interesting and better clients. But unfortunately, you won't know who the clients are until you get in.
And the other thing that I wanted to ask you, Tim, because I know that you've put a great deal of effort into furthering your career from the beginning of your law degree. If you had to give a generic or a singular piece of advice to our students and to those of us here, what would that be? Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot.
They know you can do law. If you've gotten to the penultimate year, they already know you can do law. And if you have the academics to back it up, some law firms, you have to have a minimum of 6.0. And that's just a tick in the box. Other firms don't care about it anymore. There are plenty of firms that no longer care about GPA. As long as you haven't failed subjects, or if you have, you can give them a sufficient explanation. What they care about is a well-rounded character usually. So what are you outside of law? You're not just a workaholic in law. Do you have interests? Do you have what do you do for recreational side? So they care about you as a whole character, not just how good are you at law, because they know you're good at law. They want to, if you've done anything in the community, they love that. They see you've done any volunteering, love that. HR people love seeing the extracurriculars. So if you've got anything um, law society related, they love that. If you've done anything for anyone in any way, any volunteering, they just want to know that you are it gives an inclination that you're a caring person as well as a commercial person. And if you can translate on your CV that you're both commercial and a well-rounded character, they love that.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions, but I did want to say thank you to Timothy, obviously, for his time, but particularly Matthew, if you could turn your video on just for a moment, if you can. Matthew, of all of the members we have, I must say this year you've been the most outstanding in contributing to the webinars and providing opportunities to our students. And I just wanted to publicly, whilst this is being recorded, thank you for your efforts. I apologise for the poor quality of my screen. I'm on the couch with a broken ankle, but we are greatly appreciative of that, Matthew. I'm not sure how far you are into your degree, but hopefully you'll put your hand up for an officer or an executive position next year.
Well, thank you very much for the USQ Law Society for promoting this. And as we know, Timothy was the vice president of Toowoomba for the Law Society, so he was actually the perfect person to do this. And in the promotion, as we all saw, that he got a place in a top tier firm. So congratulations, Timothy.
Thank you.
Yes, congratulations. Thank you again.
Oh, and thanks, Matthew, for reaching out and organising this.
Oh, can I ask a
Yes.
question,
Yes.
Tim? So, I had a question about the graduate placement. So,
Yep.
how do you go about it? Where does it sit with a clerkship or law graduate position?
So, generally speaking, you have to
Mhm.
have done the clerkship in order to get into the graduate spot.
Oh,
Most firms, they don't publicly advertise the graduate spot because they usually take more clerkships than there are graduate spots. That way, in case someone declines them because they're going somewhere else, they have people to fill it up. So it's rarer to see law graduate positions being offered in the bigger firms. In the smaller boutique firms, ones where it might be a one-office firm, you can see them being advertised.
mhm.
But when it comes to graduate jobs with any of the firms where they're national or international, it's priority to clerkships, which is why clerkships are rather important. They're not the only way to get into the major firms, and I will stress that. I know plenty of people who work in some of the top tier firms where they worked in boutique or small firms for a while, and then when a job vacancy comes up in about 2 years or 3 years post admission experience, then they transition over there. One unfortunate word of caution is when you apply for clerkships, say when I did mine in Brisbane, and all the clerks everywhere in Brisbane and all the firms would gather together under the Story Bridge and would share stories and would talk about who we are, where we are. It wasn't just Queensland-based people who were there. There was one
Wow.
fellow from Canberra and there was one fellow from Hobart. So when you apply for them, you're not just going against, well, in Queensland, most people would assume they're just going against UQ, QUT, Bond, and JCU. You're going against everyone. So there's, when I applied for mine, I asked how many people applied at DLA, and without blinking, they said I was about 1,200 people or 1,300 people. So it's in the thousands who apply for it. But don't let that, don't let that ever be a reason not to apply. But that's why I recommend, if you can, try and apply for all of them. Obviously, put your best effort in the ones that you want, but cast a wide net at the same time.
So also, could people apply after they graduate? So you said that it's better to apply in your second last year. So
yes, so for clerkships, you have to apply, well, not have to, but most firms will only take you in your penultimate year, your second last year. Many firms don't accept you into the clerkship program when you're in your final year. So that doesn't mean that you won't, but a lot of them, it's just a standard. You're not in your second last year. We're not accepting you into the clerkship program. And saying that, I did my clerkship with DLA Piper in my final year. So it can be done in your final year, but it's much, much better if you can get it in your second last.
Anyway, that answers my question. Thank you, Tim.
No,
and
that's all right.
You've really worked hard. I did see that all the way. And I really love your accent. I love how your words are so pronounced.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And yes, Matthew, reaching out to USQ Careers to get advice on your CV and LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn profiles are pretty important because it's one of the first things employers will Google is your LinkedIn profile. And they'll see what it looks like. What are you telling the world at large? And they can also see what some of your posts are. So make sure any posts that you've ever been a part in have been professional. LinkedIn is a professional place. Keep it as professional as possible. And also at the Careers Expo, they'll go through your CV as well if you would like.
I just another question, if I can ask. It's just about a little outside this Zoom session. So PLT or honors?
Both.
Yeah. Which one do you suggest first? I mean, say if you just graduate, finish the degree.
Look, I did both at once.
Together?
Yep, I did them together. You can do PLT as part of your honors. It will count as half your honors year, and then you just have to do your dissertations and the research methodology subject. Now, if you can do that, that does give you 2 times you can apply for clerkships in your penultimate year. You can apply in your second year of if you're doing it straight 3-year law degree, you can apply in your second year. And then since you're doing that 1 year extra of honors, you can apply in your third year as well. And then employers, it will save you, if you do get a clerkship and you go into a graduate program, it saves you a lot of time and energy not having to work full-time and study the PLT part-time.
Okay, so do you think honors help at all?
Getting into the program?
Not actually, just does it add to your 3 years already in law?
Well, it goes towards your 4th year. Some firms, it's a minimum. It's a tick in the box, you need honors. And then there are some jobs like wanting to be going to be a judge's associate. Honors for some judges is the absolute minimum. If you wanted to be, say, a High Court judge associate, first class honors is the minimum. They state that that's the requirement. And for some law firms, because they're so big and there's unfortunately so many graduates, they can do that distinction if they wanted to. But it's unfortunate because they miss out on plenty of smart people who could have been just going through something that semester.
Okay, thank you.
That's right.
Sorry, if you don't mind me interjecting, Timothy. Fatima, Professor Mortensen has spoken about honours, and whilst it is not, you can secure a job just with the undergraduate degree, honours certainly will open doors that an undergraduate degree standing alone will not.
Oh, okay, thank you. I was really considering to start right after we finish the 3 years. Yeah, I really like the idea of having it. Yeah, and I did see Tim doing it on campus in Toowoomba. So yeah, that's why I thought it is hugely important. Thanks.
That's right. Are there any other questions?
Hey, Tim.
Hi, Bon.
What do you call this? Clerkship, it's completely separate from the work experience in PLT, right?
Yes and no. It depends. So you can count your 4-week clerkship towards the 70, I think it's 75 days you need. However many days you need for PLT, because you need a set number of days work experience, you can count those 4 weeks towards it.
Cool.
Yep, 75 days. Yep. So it does go towards it. So you can get 20 days already done and you're paid for it. And it's in an interesting, usually an interesting enough area.
And within that 75-day time frame, it's usually straight up 75 days, or can it be staggered?
Oh,
like
yeah.
part-time?
You can start your 75 days up to 2 years before you start PLT, as long as you keep accurate records and the people are willing to sign off.
Okay.
But you have to get 15 of those days within the time after you started your academic part of PLT. So you can get 60 days done beforehand. That's all right. And one thing I will add, because I know this is a question I've heard before, just because you're a mature age student doesn't knock you out of getting clerkships, because I know people who are mature age students who have got clerkships. And I know young people who also get clerkships. And I know people from all the different unis who have all gotten clerkships going into graduate spots. It's all very, very dependent on how you translate, how you write your cover letter, how you speak in the interviews. Just because you're a mature age student, some see that as a negative, some see it as a positive. It unfortunately comes down to whoever the interviewer or assessor is. Right. Thank you. Any other questions, or is everyone by and large?
I don't have a question. I just didn't want to leave you there staring at a blank screen any longer. Thank you again, Tim and Matthew, and for everyone for attending.
No, my pleasure.
Thank you very much, Tim, and thanks, Tracy and the USQ Law Society for promoting.
Yeah, and
of course.
The one final word of warning is it takes a lot longer to do the applications than you might realize, especially with all the short turnaround time. So when you get onto it early, and be very, very strict about your deadlines, because time is of the essence with all of them.
So Tim, I was going to ask one question. I've only found one firm that they actually have the questions online, and one of the questions is like, what is a recent case that caught your attention, or a case that you studied, and why did you like it? And I was like, okay, this is great, because I remember this case and I can write about it now and prepare that, make 500 words or something.
Yeah.
But how do the questions change every year?
It's unique to the firm. So one firm asked me what was the most interesting recent business development that I found fascinating. And at the time I did COVID, and then I just showed my answer was the broad implications from the person ordering coffee in the coffee shop to the person making the coffee in the coffee shop to the person who owns shares in the coffee shop. But other ones it asks, what do you know about this or that? It's very dependent on the firm. It could be something completely left field. It could be, here's a case, give us a 1,000 word summary of it. It's very dependent on that. And that's why I say get onto the application part early. because while you have your standard things that you can prepare, some of those things you've just got to read it and then type, edit, and make sure there's no typos or anything else like that.
Right. Yeah, I noticed that, for example, I was actually looking at DLA Piper since you got that, and they actually don't have a cover letter. It's only an online application in your CV. So
yes, and in your online application, it's your entire cover letter, cut, copy, and paste it in.
exactly. I was about to say, you can't see the application yet because it's not open, but I was thinking, well, they probably are asking some sort of questions that, how's your commercial awareness and all these things. And that's kind of, what are your values? And that's probably what you need to put in, right?
Yeah, there'll be all sorts of questions. They'll usually, if they don't have a cover letter, if they don't require you to have a cover letter, they'll say in 250 words or less, tell us who you are. And the next line, 250 words or less, why are you studying law? So they can be very, very targeted questions if they don't have cover letters, which is why I'm saying it can take just so long to do it, because they're open for a month or thereabouts, but you're trying to apply for so many, and all of them have these, some of them just have unique questions, others you've got to really think about, and you can't prepare them early, which is why you get onto them day one.
Thanks again for such great advice.
Well, if I can be of no further assistance, I suppose that wraps this session up, and thanks everyone for attending.
Thank you, Tim. Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Matthew.
Tim.
Have a lovely evening, everyone.
Thank you.
You
Bye,
too.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.